Why, hello there! Welcome to Mega Man Dr.Wily's Revenge, or as the title screen says, just Mega Man. This is a spin-off series for the Game Boy, which each game takes content from 2 NES games. So in this case, it's Mega Man 1 and a bit of 2. We got, Cutman, Iceman, Elecman, and Fireman. I guess we'll do Iceman first. In the NES game, he's not a particularly good choice for a first stage. Here, he's still not, but none of the stages are, so yeah. Alright, so we got some Bunby helis here. So as you can see, it's looks pretty... The sprites look okay. The controls are... I'll say they're good. Obviously, though, the asterisk is going to come after that, just because, it's a small screen. It really does affect, the whole game, unfortunately. They obviously kind of try to make it, as smooth as possible, but there's only so much they can do. These ice things, if you stand on them, they will melt. So, do be careful of that. That's, of course, why they put them on spikes. And see Mega Man 2 elements. Here we have a Schworm there, The enemies from, Quickman stage and the first Wily stage, so... They kind of blend some of the elements in. And like the first 2 NES games, we don't have a slide or a charge shot if you haven't, caught on already. Here's a new obstacle that they had some new content here. You're supposed to jump on top of the icicles, because I have them memorized, supposedly. They don't have ice physics, but this floor right here does, so do be careful. Alright, go to the left. Yeah, you want to run to the left as soon as you can, and wait for this icicle to come down here so that you can have enough space to jump. Oh boy, big eyes are back. You're going to want to make a mad dash to the left. Alright. So far, so good. But yeah, the game in general, pretty, I think the complaints people have about it are valid, but it is an okay game in its own right. The only thing is that it's really memorization heavy. It doesn't look like it from this gameplay that you're seeing here, but if you, since you're not seeing a whole lot, it's very possible to run into something that you don't see. And, you wouldn't really see it coming. But, it's practicable. Alright, Iceman. He's a lot easier here than in the NES game, because, as you can see, he's only firing from 2 altitudes, and they are quite further apart. So you have a lot of room to dodge. Will he turn around if I go under him is the million-dollar question. Yes, he does. And I might die there. Oh, wow. And yeah, the Ice Slashers still do quite a bit of damage. And if you're curious, the Thunder Beam is his weakness still. It takes him out in 3 hits. Which I'm pretty sure the NES game's either 3 or 4 hits, so... And I really like this weapon the weapon get screen. So the Ice Slasher, actually very improved in this game, just because of the simple fact that the engine will allow you to switch weapons while you freeze something. So yeah, infinitely more useful. That's why I have mixed feelings on this game, because it does little things like that. Like where the engine feels like it's way better in some ways. It's I should say better, it does a lot of little things like that. But at the same time, it's also being kind of used on a screen that's, this small, and on an inherent level, it's gonna, unfortunately, have a bit of an effect on the gameplay. Speaking of, these Sniper Joes, they fire pretty quickly in this game. Although then again, the timing is, I'm pretty sure it's the exact same, every time, so it's not that big of an issue, but your first time, they can be pretty Shove. Also, the change keys block your shots in this game. Why is that important? Because we have change key makers, so they're back. And for some reason, you have to really lead their shots in this game. For some reason, I'm not the best at it. Like, it looks like I did a good job there, but trust me, later on we'll see I'm not. I don't think I'll do as good of a job as that. Like, for example, yeah, see? So the plot of this game is basically just the subtitle. I'm not sure if it's its own canon. I'm guessing it's kind of just, these are kind of canon if you want them to be. That's my guess. The Game Boy, the series in general. Oh, and of course, of all the things to freeze, the Ice Slasher can freeze the fire. Yeah, just like, it's also true of the NES game, so I guess I can't blame them too much for that. So yeah, see, you can switch while you know, while they're frozen. Amazing, makes it actually useful. Speaking of, these guys giving me trouble? I guess no longer. And of course, Fireman doesn't. You don't need to hit him a lot of times with the Ice Slasher for him to go down. So you don't have to worry too much about wasting energy here. This thing, can I freeze this actually? Oh, I did not know that. Because normally, that's way harder to dodge than it looks, and I still got hit with it. Also, this guy, weirdly enough, Mega Man powered up to this as well. He can't, if you stand right here, he cannot hit you. A very similar thing happens in Powered Up, where they also had, you know, change key makers in that stage. Fireman's stage in that game. Alright, we're not too far from the end. Yeah, as I was saying, Fireman, you don't need to hit him a lot of times with the Ice Slasher to kill him. And you wouldn't, even so, he's kind of not... They kind of neutered him a lot. Take a look. Just gonna stand in one place. And still get hit with the fire, but yeah, I can do this pretty consistently. Which you could also do in the NES game, but at least there it wasn't this obvious. Like, yeah, this is just sad. And if you run at him, he runs away from you. So, yeah, you are not your NES counterpart, I'll say that much. Really, this game neutered the bosses, but the stages are way worse. And we're going after Cutman next, so now he's weak to the Firestorm. Probably actually the most difficult of these 4 stages, in my personal opinion. I shouldn't have stopped shooting that screw too quickly. These are called Super Cutters. They are fast, they take 8 hits, and they are... The special weapons, you don't really have a lot of options in terms of dealing with them. So here, just keep running to the right for that last one, but you will incur their wrath throughout this stage, probably. And of course, we have Gabules. And you really have to plan, you know, watch your step with them, because they pair them on conveyor belts, and really, you know, you're supposed to avoid them for the most part. And they have a habit of hitting you multiple times, so there's nothing... They don't give you any breaks with those enemies. With that particular species. This room is also pretty... I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing it this slow, but other than tanking damage or just using the special weapons, I don't know what other options I have. And there's an extra one down there in case you didn't see. This is also the checkpoint, by the way. I know, because this is a terrible stage. These things I forget the name of, but you approach them, they'll move outward, and they'll start going in a circle. They're harder to avoid than they look, I'll say that much. And Big Eyes, as I mentioned earlier, they're back. Thankfully, this time you can deal with them by freezing them and, you know, doing this. But yeah, they're immune from damage unless they're jumping. Which they also did in Powered Up, too. Somewhat similar thing their eye had to open. You'd shoot them in the eye, and it would only open when they would jump. So yeah, of all the enemies to buff, 2 games so far have buffed the Big Eyes, of all things. Alright, this you kinda wanna trigger it, you know. There's probably a strategic way to trigger that so that you can easily walk past them, but I don't know. Oh, no, wait, no. You actually just keep running past them, and you don't do that. Right now, I remember. Oops. Cutman's slightly more difficult here. He doesn't take as much damage as you see, and, you know, he's kind of doing stuff predictably, but sometimes he'll do that. Yeah, sometimes he'll run at you, of course, and the further you stand away from him as he throws a rolling cutter, the longer he stands there, so there's some strategy there, but other than that, he's a little bit less, he's been buffed a little bit. I guess that's a good balance, you know, you buff Cutman, you nerf the other 3. And rolling cutter's it's alright in this game. And finally, Elecman. So these fans are new. If you stand at the same altitude as them, they'll blow you in the opposite direction. So basically like conveyor belts. Except not. Yeah, a little redundant next to them. Because they don't affect you in the air, they only affect you on the ground. As far as I'm aware. So as you can see, these stages, you know, with these disappearing blocks, they're kind of based on the NES stages, but, you know, they're remixed pretty heavily, so I guess I could call this game a remix. It's not, you know, as opposed to a port. On there. And you gotta time that. You won't have any... It'll disappear when the other one does, so you gotta be a bit careful there. And you actually, I have quicker ways of dealing with you. Actually, this is a stage I often do first. It's not too bad. Ooh, these things, Mega Man 2, you know, elements. In this game, they're lightning blocks shots, so it can kind of shield them, so you gotta be aware of that. And when you miss, you gotta wait for it to come back again. That's so much fun, isn't it? And as you can hear, the song's pretty heavily remixed from, you know, it's a different key, it's got a lot of new notes. In the other Mega Man games, they either scrap the original theme completely, or they just straight up port the song without remixing it at all. So Mega Man, you know, this first one was a bit unique in that regard. Not sure how I feel about it. I like these songs alright, but no. Oh, these clouds. Just like Mega Man 2, they don't really hide anything behind them. Well, actually, sorry, Mega Man 2 did hide things behind the clouds, slightly. I guess the Pippies, but... yeah, in this game, they kind of don't serve any purpose. And usually I don't do that room without taking a hit, so, wow, I'm happy about that. This room's annoying. It doesn't look bad. Yeah, it's easy. It's very easy to misjudge the hitboxes, and you gotta be pretty exact with how quickly you run. You basically have just enough time. And of course, if you get hit once, you go tumbling all the way down, so you're probably gonna take another hit from these Susies. Because they have another one here. See, case in point, case in point. Yeah, it's very easy to accidentally run into them. I should be using the Ice Slasher on. Also, Rolling Cutter is actually a pretty good way to deal with him. I think this is the end? Yeah. So in this game, Electroman's weird, I'll say. He's not as hard. He sometimes will jump when you shoot, but not always. And he sometimes will run in your direction. Well, most of the time, I should say. But I've had him stop. And sometimes he fires the Thunder Beam, which I don't know if he'll get the chance to show it off. No? Okay. And he's also weak to the Rolling Cutter. And the Thunder Beam does not do as much damage this time around, so all around, easier boss, but... Ooh, we also got the Carry utility, so... That's this game's, Magnet Beam equivalent, I guess. Which we'll explain shortly, but, what we have now is we have our Dr.Wily, Fortress, escapade. Visual Saucer. And, you know, as I said, this game's pretty... It doesn't really have a plot, but there is, I guess, a small twist that we have in store for us. And, so to show off the carry, sort of, first let's show off the Thunder Beam. You know, similar to, you know, the NES game. Not really much to say otherwise. It creates a platform directly below you. You can only have one on screen at a time, and it tends to stay there for a while, sucking up energy. So in general, I don't like it. And yeah, you're forced to use it a couple times. Well, more than a couple. You get it from the 4th Robot Master that you beat. So unfortunately, even... It can't help you during any of the stages before this, which sucks. And yeah, in general, it's kind of a failure. Oh boy, moles. Rolling Cutter, weirdly enough, is doesn't look like it, but it's probably one of the better weapons for dealing with them. They drop a lot of weapon energy, so what you want to do is you want to stand around a lot and try to clear them off, and then inch forward a little bit like I'm doing. They'll never spawn directly above or below where you stand, so you can only hit them if you run into them. And here you get a lot of weird segments where you have to use carry to replenish the energy for carry, so... Yeah, and also you want to take the left path here and avoid that thing. And if you may want to be quick with your carry utility if you're, you know, about to land on those spikes. Which admittedly is, in theory, a rather creative use for it, but in practice, I'm not so sure. Also, there's still the first sets of Meteors, you know, the ones that don't run at you. You know, for Mega Man 1. Why do I specify? Because if we go down here... Yep, they do. They're the other one. Except they shoot more quickly, I feel. Weird that they put them in the game, but they actually barely show up. Other than that. Here you just use carry to get above there. And again, more using weapon energy to get the weapon energy, so... And here I always forget to go to the left to, you know, avoid that, electricity. Actually, here you don't have enough space to jump. You have to take it out. One interesting thing about the Thunder Beam is its range feels like it's shifted slightly upward. There's kind of a blind spot where you won't hit an enemy directly in front of you. Also, this room is not truly empty. It has a Pippi. Yay. Or the thing that drops the Pippies. I don't know which one is which. More moles, yay. At least you'll, for any of the boss fights that we may come up with, this'll probably give you some health if you don't get impatient and tank this, you know, section. Alright, and here you have to use, be a bit more clever with your use, because you have to wait here, wait for it to stop moving, jump, and then use it again. And here, careful of spikes. So,